so fun when we get to see Joe, the bassman, also singing with such grace and love and vulnerability. Thank you. We are held in the hands of grace, safe in the arms of love. I love this idea that when we are not at our best, however we may define that we can surrender into the arms of love to hold us, allowing grace to hold us and remember that there is something greater moving within us as love, and that we can surrender to this love and allow it to be the guiding force in our lives. So speaking of love, this month's theme is Love Out Loud. And we are basing it on the book All About Love by the incomparable Black feminist author and Kentuckian, the cultural critic, Kentucky's very own Bell Hooks. So we kicked off this month talking about honesty, being honest with ourselves, with our grief and our pain, and allowing ourselves the space to embody love in all aspects of our life, and to allow that love to propel us to keep moving forward to the mountaintop of justice. And then last week, we looked at Bell Hooks' idea of living a love ethic, one of honesty and openness and personal integrity, and how to allow our supple hearts to stretch and grow through compassion and a willingness to find ourselves in the other. So this is deep work, y'all. You know, we come together every week and say that love is always the answer, but do we fully understand the depth of what we mean by the word love? It can be easy to conflate love with niceness, right? With this gentle, soft energy, this wanting to make someone feel better. But there's a difference between niceness and kindness. And kindness speaks truth. Kindness is love moving through us to say and do the next right thing for the highest good for all. Niceness is not always genuine, right? It's that bless your heart. It's the bless your heart kind of love. And it's often a whitewashed version of love that is only seeks to appease or keep things at the status quo or this superficial, surface level of niceness to avoid conflict. And trust me, I get it. I'm a 9 on the Enneagram, which is known as the peacemaker. And my innate response to conflict is to move past it as quickly as possible, if not avoid it, if possible. And through the many years of my own personal growth and spiritual practice, I have learned to identify that fear when it arises, the fear of conflict, the fear of what love is actually wanting me to say. So I have learned to identify then what I would call that voice of niceness within me, which, is an identity I've cultivated since childhood. I mean, with a name like Rainbow, come on. I love my name, Mama. And, I took on some meaning that it meant I always had to be nice and positive and happy and keep everything at peace. So within me, I began to recognize when that voice, that niceness is emerging, and Instead, to breathe into it, to stretch in my willingness to grow and to go deeper, to really listen to what love would have me do or say in that moment. And it doesn't mean it's not kind or loving to say what needs to be said. So love isn't always what we want to hear. Love can be that fierce mama bear energy that can cut like a knife through fear and transform us in ways that we didn't even know was possible. So that is the kind of love that we talk about when we say that love is always the answer. It's not bless your heart with a smile and maintaining the status quo. It is the transformative healing power of love that allows us to see a new perspective and experience something greater. So today, our topic is looking at this idea of mutuality as the heart of love. And the dictionary defines mutuality as the sharing of a feeling, action, or relationship between two or more parties. And its synonyms are a reciprocal relationship or reciprocity, right? Which we talk about that a lot here too, this idea that we live in a reciprocal universe. So I often say that relationships is where we get to do our work. Anyone agree? Can I get an amen? All right. There we go. So, it can be easy to want to just sit in the feeling of the and the peace of meditation. And then we go out into the world, and there's other people. We bump up against each other, and we discover what love really is. Relationships provide that opportunity to practice love in ways that stretch us and cause us to confront our often hidden beliefs about ourselves from childhood throughout all of our experiences. So we can think about love as just this aspect of life that just is, and therefore doesn't require nurturing. But if we really are interested in knowing a deeper experience of love in our lives and in our relationships, love is something that takes nurturing. Just like any other quality that we want to experience in our life, to grow in, to have a deeper understanding and experience of, we must nurture it, cultivate it, find ways to experience and understand it deeper with awareness and conscious curiosity. Just like if we endeavor to experience more joy in our life, we can't just sit at home alone and pout. We have to cultivate play and connection. So I want to give a shout out to the 30-some people that were here yesterday for our game night. Was that fun or what? Yes. I was not able to attend, but Jennifer live streamed me in for a few moments, and it was was such a joy to see everyone together, from the littlest to the tallest. I won't say the youngest to the oldest. But knowing that we are this intergenerational community that comes together and plays together. So if we want to experience more joy, we have to cultivate that experience through opportunities to connect and to play. And if we want to experience, say, more abundance, we have to practice giving and receiving, that reciprocal nature, right? So love also is something that we must tend to within ourselves and in our relationships if we want to have a deeper understanding of it. And like the song lyrics say, love is something, if you give it away, you'll end up having more. How cool is that? Imagine something that you can get. It feels like a riddle almost, right? Like, what is something that if you give, you actually get more of? Love. So we are living in this reciprocal universe, and we get to ask ourselves, how are we going to become in right relationship with that reciprocity, with the quality of love in our lives? And it takes practice. Bell Hooks says, the practice of love takes time. Without a doubt, the way we work in this society leaves individuals with little time when they are not physically or emotionally tired to work on the art of loving. I just love that idea, the art of loving. So imagine how different the world would be if we truly valued love as much as we do work and productivity and money and these other things in our world. And it doesn't mean that those are bad or wrong. It's all about being in right relationship, right? To focus all on work and money and productivity with no love leaves us experiencing lack and the fullness of life that is possible. So while we can think of love as something that it's, perhaps it's just, of course, love is one of my strongest values. I notice when reading Bell Hooks' invitation to practice love, I started to reflect and think for myself, all right, how much time, if I were to put it in my calendar, how much time am I actually spending and putting my energy towards demonstrating and reflecting that commitment to love in my life? And I invite you to ask yourself the same, are you allocating time to nurture love? And what does this look like? Well, one is practicing sitting with ourselves, being with ourselves, loving ourselves. It could be through an act of self-care, of allowing love and grace to support us in our endeavors, right? Are we allocating time to nurture love as that creative energy of life moving in, as, and through all of us? Nurturing love in our relationships. In All About Love, Bell Hooks invites us into her world of curiosity about understanding all aspects of love. So this idea of practicing love, it really landed for me because I realized that sometimes I could take love for granted. Like, love is who I am, love is all there is. Like, we say these things all the time. So I could take for granted the idea that it is actually something that I need to practice consciously. And then I can see when I begin to approach love as something to practice, to scratch an itch when we have it, no matter if it seems appropriate or not, right? What a demonstration. Dogs, they don't care. It's okay, Loretta. The dog's just being the dog and loving itself because it has an itch. But how much do we hold back because this isn't appropriate? But what a demonstration of self-love. It had an itch, it scratched it, right? What if we were willing to do that, to acknowledge? Yeah. You never know where our lessons are going to come from, right? But how often, going from that, do we kind of discount our own needs and what our body is telling us it needs or wants because we think we're supposed to show up and be and do something a certain way? So we practice love through self-love, through being curious and noticing first what we even desire and what our body is telling us it needs and wants. In order to approach love as something to practice, we get to fully embody love. And just like any other skill that we may desire to master, it takes practice. We can practice love as a spiritual practice, opening our hearts in meditation, sending our love and just holding people in our hearts and our minds and with love and compassion. We can practice love through self-forgiveness. We can practice love in the many interactions we have throughout the day, not only with our loved ones, but with strangers. One of the ways that I practice love, and again, I'm saying practice, doesn't mean I'm perfect at this thing called love, right? So one of the ways that I practice is assuming the best intentions from others. So when I feel slighted or upset by someone's actions, I assume that they are coming from the best intention, which then, it really isn't about them. What that does is allows it to bring it back to myself. By assuming the best intention, instead of getting caught up on why they did or didn't do this thing to me, assuming that they were coming from whatever circumstance that they were in and wherever they are, that what it does to me is just lets them off the hook so I can turn the focus back to me and see what triggered me in that moment as an invitation to know myself better. Assuming the best intention in others helps me from getting caught up in a story out there and brings me back to saying, okay, well, what is it about this that is upsetting me? What is triggering me by what this person did or said? You know, I think about a simple example of this is when we're driving in traffic. Such an opportunity for grace, right? And someone comes racing through and, cuts you off, and you have to slow down a little bit, and maybe they make the light and you don't. How are you going to respond in that moment? So to assume the best intention would require, this is just something I do, like, oh, maybe they needed to get to the hospital. It doesn't matter. They probably didn't. They're probably, just caught up in their own world. But it doesn't matter. When I say, okay, give a little grace, maybe, they needed to get to something important, I can then look at myself and say, okay, well, why is this bothering me? Am I feeling rushed? Am I worried about being late? Did I not give myself enough space or time? Am I stressed? What is really going on? Because what I notice is there are moments when someone cuts me off and it's literally nothing. It just is what it is. And there are moments when I get, ah. So what's the difference? Me, not the other person. So I get to breathe and bring that focus and that love back to myself, to truth and to peace, and to the love that is present in this now moment as an invitation to go deeper into understanding myself and in relationship to myself. So Bell goes on to propose this idea that if we create space to work on love, that it would have a huge impact not only in our relationships, but also in our work life and in our overall quality of life. So she says, truly, there would be no unemployment problem in our nation if our taxes subsidized schools where everyone could learn to love. Job sharing would become the norm. With love at the center of our lives, work could have a different meaning and focus. Imagine going to school and one of your courses is on love, right? How would the world be different? there are such staggering statistics regarding the amount of people that are unhappy in their jobs, those that are simply working for the weekend, right? And we kind of make light of it because it's such a cultural norm that we have songs about it and we joke about it and we have memes about it. But what if we were to flip the script and see a new possibility? Like, it doesn't have to be that way. Just because it is, it doesn't have to be that way in the future. And it starts with the now, with our willingness to begin to prioritize love in all that we do and begin to work towards a shift in the structural ways in our society that uphold this idea that it's better to be productive instead of simply be and love, right? So how do we work towards not only knowing love within ourselves, but towards creating that shift in the structures and systems of our society by recognizing love as the foundational need within all of us that it really is. And I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight and that there won't be challenges. You know, this isn't an invitation to just go and quit your job tomorrow to find your bliss, right? We do live in this kind of dichotomy of the world of form, and the opportunity is to allow ourselves to grow and expand in our own consciousness and awareness of love and what we value, and then share that such that it becomes a cultural value. So if we were taught to truly love our neighbors and actually demonstrate that, how would that change? If we were taught not to fear the other from a place of, lack or scarcity or, because they're different or they might take our jobs, right? This is all fear and lack. Imagine if the predominant narrative of our culture was a foundation of love, seen all as love and all as the beloved. To be curious and open and ask, what would it look like to collectively create a world in which it is safe to love and to see others as the beloved, right? So this vision that Hooks writes about and all about love, it's about calling forth something new. And again, it may not be achieved in my lifetime, but it doesn't mean it's not worth striving for future generations, for the health of our planet. So we ask ourselves, what is my part in co-creating this world? And for me, getting to teach about love, and not only teach about it, but be about it, is the work. And it's what motivates me and gives me hope for a better future and tomorrow by contemplating love and knowing love and choosing love over and over again. And when I forget to give myself the space and the grace to choose again. I've noticed that this phrase, space and grace, has become kind of my mantra for this year. Sometimes we set intentions, like this is my word of the year and whatnot, and then other times things find us. So I didn't really intend or find like a word for the year, but what I have now noticed is that it found me through this mantra of space and grace. I find myself saying it over and over, not only requesting this from others, but also of myself, asking for grace, as well as offering grace and demonstrating that when others forget and stumble, as have I. And I find it interesting that Dr. Ernest Holmes, the founder of the Science of Mind teaching, his definition of love and grace are so similar. So last week we looked at this definition of love as the self-givingness of spirit through the desire of life to express itself in terms of creation. Well, he also defines grace as the givingness of spirit to its creation. It is not a special law, but a specialized one. Grace is, but we need to recognize it, he says. So grace is, love is. Spirit is always giving of itself to us through us. And not as some special favor from some God outside. Grace requires us to have the willingness to allow it, to recognize it, to be open to it, open to love, the love within us, to shine the light of truth on the situation at hand and bring us back to the moment of peace, of possibility, and love. So when I say grace and space, I mean the willingness to practice, to make space for grace and love in our lives. And I notice myself offering this guidance to many others these days through all that is occurring in the world. It just feels like so much is up for deep healing at the collective level, and then, of course, at the individual level. So to give ourselves the space and grace to embrace our messiness, our humanity, and to love ourselves even when we don't feel like we may deserve it. And same, to love others when we feel like they may not deserve it. So to me, grace is the willingness to express love through letting go of the past and letting go of any meaning that I may have made about myself based on what occurred. And to allow forgiveness to have its way through us as the healing, transformative power of love. Which brings us to another way to practice love through the spiritual practice of forgiveness. Now, I had intended to speak on forgiveness today, and then I realized that that is actually a whole other talk and requires a bit more time and attention. So I'm going to give myself the grace and the space to dive into that deeper this week, so that means you have to come next week or tune in next week to explore this idea of forgiveness even deeper. And, it's kind of like those podcasts that now there's a part 2. We didn't get to it, so come back for part 2, right? So this week, I invite you to look at how love is showing up in your relationships as an opportunity and an invitation to know yourself more fully. Are you in? Yes, all right. Let's pray about it. Let's take a nice deep breath again, breathing in and out. One more deep, conscious breath, breathing in and out. Breathing in love, exhaling love, integrating, embodying love. recognizing that love is all. Love is the very power and presence of life expressing itself in, as, and through each of us. Love is transformative. Love is greater than all fear. Love is infinite, always expanding and growing. The more we give, the more we open to receive this quality of life known as love. So I know and affirm that love is all, and therefore love is who I am. Love is the very essence and nature and truth of each and every one of us. So I speak this word now from this place of oneness, affirming that love is leading the way in my life right here, right now. That I'm open to receive and to feel and to know a deeper expression of love as my life. To lean into love. To allow grace to move through the parts of me that may be holding on to resentment, that may be holding on with a hardened heart, and allowing love and grace and compassion to gently soften my heart, to stretch, to grow the supple heart that lives within me, to hold and to know truth and peace, to be a living demonstration of love as kindness, as self-love, becoming aware of my needs and desires, of what is seeking to express through me, to love myself by listening to myself, acknowledging and honoring myself, and giving myself that space and grace to feel, to process, to express, and to embody the full essence of my humanity. Knowing that right here, right now, love is. Love will never abandon us, for it is who we are. So I breathe in and allow that feeling tone of love to permeate my entire being, to relax my shoulders, to surrender to love. So grateful. So grateful to know love is right here, right now, always expressing itself through me, as me. So grateful to get to know and understand myself as love. And so grateful for the fulfillment of this word as I release it into the action of the law that always says, yes, 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 my beloved, it is done, and it is so, and so it is.